few minutes. I want to call this work session to order. As a reminder, this is a work session. This is not the same as a normal board meeting. It's a retreat, so it will be a little bit more flexible in terms of conversations and that kind of thing. So it's not a place where we're going to be making a lot of decisions, if any. So just one decision in terms of, okay. All right, welcome. We're just getting started, sir. Glad you could make it. Okay, we'll go ahead with the invocation if we could, Mr. Richardson.
Yes, sir. Let's pray. Father, we thank you for the opportunity that we gathered around the table tonight. And Father, the business that's set out before us about the district, we just pray that you guide us and direct us. That we use wisdom and what's best for children at the heart of everything that we do. And Father, we just thank you for the opportunity to serve our community. And Father, just continue to give us opportunities to serve you. In Jesus' name, amen.
Amen. Thank you. Okay, purpose of the retreat.
Good evening, Mr. Chair, members of the board, and those in our audience. Thank you for joining us tonight. Tonight's retreat is fairly simple and light, as it will focus, the majority of our evening will focus on making certain we're all on the same level in the same place with regard to finances. We are on the brink of going into another budget season, and we need to make some good decisions about this budget season. So I thought it would be a really nice idea if we took time for this day. This is something we did not do last year, but to come back and make certain we're very clear about our finances, how we got where we are right now, and maybe in light of some of the other discussions we're having, we will find this information helpful. So that is the main purpose. However, we need to start. There is one action item, Mr. Chair, and this is a contract Dr. Whitmore will walk us through. And after that, you all have asked that we submit a survey to the Toller Committee. Toller community. We have worked with RTI on putting all of your thoughts. We had 3 sets of questions submitted, and they've worked with their professional teams, research teams, and they've developed surveys that could be administered. And we have with us Dr. Angela Quick, who's going to walk you through that work. We gave them everything you all submitted, and they're going to walk you through not only the work itself, but the methodology that went behind it, so that the community will know just how seriously we took it. So this evening, I'll start by turning it over to Dr. Whitmore.
Okay, great.
Thank you, Dr. McLean. Mr. Chairman, members of the board, tonight I'm bringing to you a contract for the roofing work at Butterstem Elementary School, C.G. Cradle Elementary School, and Mary Potter Middle School. This is the final stage in what will give the green light to begin repairing the failed roofs at those 3 schools. This, of course, is you can see the sealed document. This, according to our agreement with the county commissioners, needs your approval tonight. So the total cost is $239,136 for this.
Okay, questions?
Where does this put us in the continuum of roof repair?
Very good question. So I call this we're still in phase 1. Phase 1. Phase 2 will be significantly more. This phase 2 will probably be almost $4 million worth of work that I will be bringing to you guys. And we're hoping to get that moving this spring.
Other questions? Yes, sir.
Well, this is 236, so is this going to, in other words, will this satisfy those 3 facilities and there will not be further requirements or needs to revisit those facilities? In other words, once you do this, are we going to be done with these facilities that you identified?
No, sir.
Then what else should we expect to have to do then?
The reason that we moved on these 3 first was because of the condition of the roofs. These were deemed failed. So the next phase of roofing will be our critical ones. And so the engineers helped determine the order in which these are being addressed based on the roof type and the condition that they were in and how they felt we could get the best price by bundling them.
So is this is this patchwork, or, I mean, we're gonna have to undo this and redo something else? I'm just trying to understand the dollars that we're spending.
Yes, sir, these are all, none of these are minor fixes, these are replacements.
Let me say it a little bit of a different way, if I could, Mr. You, we've seen at some point in time along the way, the list of school roofs that were that were failed, and then the list that are critical and so forth.
Yes.
Has the amount of money in the contracts been spent to this point that do cover the failed roofs? And are you saying then we're moving on to the next phase?
Yes, sir.
And has the money that we spent on the failed in line with what we projected?
So, yes, it is. And just to give you an idea, we have, of the $15 million that we received, we've earmarked about $5 million for roofing. And according to our original estimates, back when we developed that comprehensive document, we projected that we would need approximately $5 million. And about 600,000 of that or so was gonna go towards failed roofs, and then the next, or what I call phase 2, critical, would be about a little over 4 million. So we're in line with our original projections, and the reason for that is because we had a roofing company that was assisting us with our inventory of roofs. That, if you recall, those were not like my guesses or our team's best guesses. We had some expert input on that, a good place to start. So, Mr. Mims, in answer to your question, I mean, I think compared to the HVAC, the roofing has been much slower to get started, but you're gonna see it accelerate quickly. So phase 2 is going to be, I think, 7 schools and about $4 million with the project, so it's gonna be much bigger. And I'm hoping that will go out for bid probably in January or February.
Well, I'm still unclear to a degree. We say that these are for failed roofs, and I'm trying to understand the definition of that. Are these roofs leaking? I mean, have we patched them up? That's why I asked
Yes.
the question about,
Yes.
is this temporary? They are currently leaking.
This work is not temporary, this work is to fix the problem and to replace the roofs.
State, am I correct, in these schools you've listed, they're not the entire roofs of the
Correct.
school, it's certain buildings that fail?
You have to understand that at any given campus, we may have 2, 3, even 4 different types of roofs that were installed at different times and are in varying conditions. So this, for example, when you look at Mary Potter here, this is the wing over the front office, which was new construction 15, 20 years ago when they remodeled Mary Potter or so. So, and that membrane covering that they put on there is disintegrating because of the sunlight. So you go up there and it looks like fabric and it's just coming to dust. And we put patches on it and glob, asphalt putty and all that stuff on there, and it's, you know, every time we get a leak, we try to stop it, but this is going to replace that roof.
Yes, sir.
The question I have, Dr. Winborn, and I know this is sort of going over spilt milk, if you will, but each year when we do a budget, we have funds allocated for these things. My question is, when was this first identified as a project that needed to be addressed? And what I'm trying to get a feel for is how long have we kicked this can down the road?
We did this work last year.
When I came on,
When you came to this role, when Dr. Whitmore came to this role, when we discovered mold, it prompted us to look at a lot of varying issues at all of our schools. So this was discovered last year. We then put bids out. We now have contractors on, and we've got a prioritized list of what needs to be done to bring correction. HVAC was one piece, roofing is another piece. There are a bunch of tentacles. We got the $15 million, which will help pay for this.
Okay, but my question was, each year we allocate funds for roofing and capital projects. And, you know, I would like to think, and I feel confident that you have a process in place to where if you know a roof is supposed to last for 15 or 20 years, you're not going to wait to year 19 before you begin addressing it. You're going to be doing something in the years ahead. And I was just trying to get some feel, when was this? So if you were saying, Dr. McLean, that last year was the first year that we identified that the roof at Mary Potter needs to be repaired, then there's been a problem with our process all along.
What I can tell you is, this administration just came in last year,
Now, I understand.
and that's what we've identified.
Okay.
I can't speak before July of last year.
Yes, I understand. You just came on last year.
I did.
You know, but we have individuals here, we've been doing a budget annually and so forth, so that should be part of the historical documentation as to what our needs are. Final question, is it the same contractor doing this that will do the $4 million on phase 2?
Well, that we put out for bid, so we don't know. This was the lowest bidder, lowest qualified bidder, I should say.
Okay.
So it will be, it's formal bidding process for this course, with sealed bids and all of that. And the attorney, of course, has been assisting with that.
Okay, anybody else? Can I have a motion to approve this phase 1 contract as presented?
So moved.
We have a motion.
Second.
Mr. Richardson. Further discussion? All those in favor say aye. All those opposed, motion carries. All right.
Wonderful. Next, I'd like to invite Dr. Quick to join us. She and her team took all of the information you all submitted when you decided that you'd like to survey the Toller community as a part of this study. And so I'll just turn it over to Dr. Quick at this time. Thank you.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, Madam Superintendent, board members, community, and our Central Services team. I have 2 draft documents. They're in green in your folders that I'd like to kind of talk through the methodology of how we came to agreement on these 2 documents. So a couple of things around the questionnaires. You have one that is, we're calling it the Joe Toller Oak Hill Community Questionnaire. And then the second one are budget questions. We separated out the list of questions that we were given into 2 separate. You will see that some budgetary information is in the community questionnaire for Joe Toller Community, but the budget questions could be used for the entire district if the board wanted to do that. That's not specific to Joe Toller. We can amend any of these. The introductory language, we also put on the first page, we can amend that. So we basically just wanted to take all of your information and we built the questions on a format that is a format that we use with survey methodology to make sure that the questions aren't leading and that are free of bias, and that we can actually then go and use the data in the scaled format to look at degree of concern or degree of impact. Because generally when you do any kind of survey of this nature, because you're talking about very sensitive and very difficult decisions, there's already concern in the community. So you're trying to determine what level of concern. So then if we wanted to use a similar format for other schools that were on the conversation to do things with, you could use the same kind of scale and similar questions to get community feedback in other parts of the community as well. A couple of other things I mentioned, there's 2 parts of the community questionnaire. You'll see there's one that's called a level of concern scale, and that's the one with the most possible impact questions. And then on the 3rd page, you will see an impact scale. We also wanted to make sure, because all 3 sets of questions that we were given from you had some open-ended statements. We wanted to give people an opportunity to give feedback in an open-ended format as well. So you'll see questions number 7 and 8 there. And then the last thing I'd say about the general community questionnaire is that it's very important that each question that is asked a specific way to get a specific response. So that was the reason why we formatted the tables, so that the question, you have one question and one response instead of conflating different responses around each of those questions. So that's any questions around the methodology or the format for the community questionnaire. That's the longer one, and we estimated, based on the people that design surveys for a living that we work with, they estimated that this would take about 10 minutes to complete. So I'll pause there. Madam Superintendent, anything else you would like me to point out that would be helpful on this one?
No, I think what you shared is appropriate. I think it is a matter of, while we don't necessarily need a vote, we certainly don't want to send anything out to the community that this board doesn't want to go out.
Can I ask you a question?
Sure.
And this may be one of us asked this question, but tell me a little bit about question number 10. What is our thought behind what we're looking for there? About the free and reduced lunch question.
So I think, so there's two pieces of demographics. I think within any community, it was submitted around how would the closing or the consolidation of schools affect low income. And so this is two parts. So one, that was one of the questions, but two, this is demographic data that you may want to look at impact within low wealth families specifically, and this gives you the opportunity to track that. It's an excellent question. And that was another thing I wanted to point out. There's demographic data on here we can add or take away, but I wanted to make sure that the team also had the information that they needed to disaggregate that data as well.
Couple of things. First of all, would encourage you, I know that you do this, but encourage you to make sure that the wording in the document is very clear. For example, on the front, the community, whatever it is, the very front, the last sentence, results will be reported in aggregate.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I'm not
Okay.
sure I know what that means.
Okay,
And would encourage you just to go through that,
gotcha.
okay? The
Thank you.
second question, or the second item to throw out on the table is, and we just solved this, so it's, I wonder, question number 2, the possible impact, and we see different levels of concern and so on and so forth. Is it possible to have, obviously leave this in, but also to have something where those taking the survey would also prioritize? I'm just talking, in other words, of these that are listed, keep this in here as it is,
Mm-hmm.
but then have another one, of these, what is your top concern as completing it, what isn't? Because it would really be, most people are going to be very concerned about this, and that's fine, but it really would be interesting to see what is the main reason or reasons why you as a parent or you as a person in the community have a reaction. I don't know, you understand what I'm saying?
I do, yes, sir.
Because I think that would help us understand better what the community, in terms of survey, what the community overall is feeling is most pressing.
So you're not looking at frequency of mode. So two things to that. In that topic, there's 2 ways that we can do it. We can do a separate scale and ask that, or you could look at, for each one of these you get back, how many are immoderately or extremely concerned, and then do propensity scoring across all of the different.
Now, there you go, using those fancy
Sorry.
words.
Not a fancy word, but you could go, I promise, if it's coming from me, it's not fancy. You can then take all of the survey responses and look at how many said extremely concerned on the loss of jobs at one school, and then you can get at the level of concern. So we can do it either way. Looking at all of the responses and how many bubbled in, moderately concerned or extremely concerned, and which questions did they bubble that response in, and then do a tally literally a tally. Out of 100 responses, the loss of a school with a historical place in the community existed or exhibited extremely concerned 60 out of 100. And then you look at the prioritization that way. So we can do it either way. It's just less data to do it this way versus doing a separate.
No, I think we should do both.
Okay.
In other words, yes, leave this one in as it currently is.
Okay.
And then maybe have another one that would somehow give us the priority. I don't know how to
Yes,
say
we
it.
could do another column and say rank out of 5 priorities, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Okay. Force them to prioritize. Yes, sir.
Board members, anybody else? Mr. Manning?
Of course. And I appreciate you saying that because I made a couple of notes after a cursory review. I appreciate the 5-point Likert scale. So that will sort of give us some insight. But I'm a little curious if the budget one can be used throughout the county, why wasn't it incorporated in this? Because these budget questions will impact the community, the Joe Tola Oak Hill community as well. So why 2 separate as opposed to just one, and one section on just general questions and another section on finance?
So the rationale was, and even though this budget question has Toller questionnaire at the top, the idea would be this budget question could be a question if the board chooses to use across the district, because it's just general budget questions.
But we definitely need to, I think, include it in Toller
Okay.
and at Toller, and I think we need to have a prioritization as well. What is it? We're trying to find out what is really important to the residents. How can we find out what's important if we don't ask them these questions?
So if we add the budget to this original one, it's going to definitely be longer. And as long as you're okay with that, then.
5 minutes longer?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
Okay. I mean, I'm certainly, the information, I think, is of such a value that adding another 5 minutes is minuscule. Didn't see anything in the community one, and I'm not sure, and I didn't
Now, wait a
submit.
minute, which one are you talking about?
In the community, not the budget, okay, I'm not talking about the budget, I'm talking about the community. And I didn't submit the question, but as I'm looking at the questions now, about volunteerism, and while you identified, tell us who you are, other, specifically business community. Didn't see them, I didn't see the business community, and I didn't see anything about, we can, how much do you volunteer at Tola?
So with that.
I mean, just something simple. If we're talking about what it means to the community, I'd like to know their level of participation or activity at the facility.
So would that fit in under a community member living near Joe Toller Oak Hill, or do you want something more general around volunteer at Joe Toller Oak Hill?
How often do you use the facility? I don't know. I'm just putting something out there, but we're saying that this is a vital structure in the community. So I think it would be worthwhile for them to give us some feedback. I use it once or twice a month, or once a week, or what have you. That would, I think, send a tremendous message. If you say, I never go there, then I'm going to look at your responses a little more closely. And remember, this is the first time we've seen this. Let me sleep on it tonight. I'm going to have more questions.
quick, get it out.
Well, that's why we want to take some time this evening, because this is representative of the board. We want it to be a good document, a document you feel good about. So this is exactly what this time is for.
Comments, anybody? So where are we in terms of moving forward with
Really, feedback. Our hope is that we could get this out within the next week or so that we could get information back to you all by the time we have the public hearing.
Okay.
Now that is, it could be an aggressive timeline. I don't know, but that would be the hope.
And we are electronically and paper doing this,
Paper
correct?
and electronic, we want to have a way in which people could go online to take this, but we want to get plenty of copies at the school. We promised that community that night that we'd have hard copies available right at the school.
A question about that. If you can go online to do it, can you restrict or can someone from another community access it if it's online?
Yes.
Yes, they can.
So theoretically, if you do both without doing assigned codes for people, then you could potentially have duplicative results. You could have two people, one person filling out two responses.
So the level of confidence in the survey would,
Theoretically, yes. Again, but it gives you trend data. And this is one piece of data. You guys, the board has seen other pieces of data. It will give you a trend. You will look at the strength of the concerns and where those concerns are.
Well, what do people that live throughout Ramsey County that has connections to that school, how people that graduated from there and so on might live in the county? And would they be interested in filling out this survey? I would think they would.
so are we sending this out to the whole county or are we sending it out to the Joe Tola community? Because if that's the case, you need to rename the survey.
I agree.
Yeah, it should definitely go to the Joe Toller community, because if you got results from someplace in Creedmoor, what would that result be of any value?
My point is, if you put it online, people in Creedmoor could certainly.
Agreed.
Yeah, could certainly use it, yeah, and all over.
Paper pencil is probably the most accurate.
You can control that a little
Yes,
bit better.
yes. Electronically is gonna be open to anyone, anywhere, unless you do a lot of, staff does a lot of legwork on assigning numbers so that you don't have duplicative, and I think that's,
You know, one thing I've seen is we could send it, it could be emailed to the parents of the students who are at the school
Correct.
right now, and emailed to the faculty and staff at the school. That could be as far as you may want to go with electronic, and then others could come to pick up the survey either from here or at the school itself. So we can kind of put some boundaries,
Yeah.
if you'd like. Completely recall, I think they're very good points well made.
Do we have any more copies of this? Because I would think that Mr. Rivers, when he comes on board, will be involved with some of this. And so if we can get copies of this to him, I think that would be very appropriate.
And one thing that comes to mind, when we talk about this, is school that has an alumni association that's scattered all over the world, maybe. It's going to be interesting in whether the schools stay open or closed. Shouldn't they have shouldn't have an opportunity to say something about it? I mean, I would certainly think so.
Absolutely. And that is where online makes it easy and possible, but then you bring up another point where it is then open to everyone. So we could get hard copies to the Alumni Association if we'd like, and let them distribute, if we don't want to put it online. We're open.
I just wonder, I appreciate the effort to do all that, I just wonder, is that way more legwork involved just to restrict who's taking this survey when she's saying it's trend data? My thing is, if somebody's gonna take the time to take the survey, either they don't have nothing else to do if they're gonna take it multiple times, good for them, or they have an interest in it for some reason. I think it is a momentous decision for that community. I don't know if we need to put all the effort and resource and time to restrict it if it's trend day. Would just be my personal thought. I definitely get the points of why we want to restrict it, but I think we're putting a lot of resource into something that, I mean, so what if we have somebody take it 5 times? Then, okay, you're a happy person that's taking it 5 times.
And I guess I would ask the utility of it. Exactly how would you propose that this information, once obtained, be used?
It is your data. As the
Information
board.
only? Or what?
Yeah.
We
How
will,
do you,
Well, we hope it's information you would use to help make your decision. Like she said, this will be one piece of data. You have IPSAC data, you will have the public hearing data, you will have the financial data, you've got the study itself, you will now have the community survey piece of data. And mind you, once we get this out, we do need to give them time to sort of go in and capture and calculate and crunch the numbers and all of that. So it's just another bullet point for this board.
I would leave with a couple of things, what we need so that we can make sure that you have what you need as a team. I heard that, we wanna place the budget questions with the initial, community questionnaire, so you answered the question around both surveys separate, if everyone's in agreement with that. Any wording changes, and I got some tonight, cursory changes, but definitely if there are any more. Are the demographics we're asking, is that all you wanna ask when people are filling this out? Is there any other demographic data? And then to think about just what you brought up, Mr. Mims, the collection and analysis aspect of how to use this information.
Dr. Quick, let me just, you made a statement and I'm not sure if I heard you correctly. Now, so will they be separate or will it will be one?
It will be one, that's your
Okay.
recommendation, but
Okay.
I wanted to make sure that everyone else was on that page, so I have clear direction.
And you'll modify the demographic information because it's
Yes, for the
demographic
volunteer.
information on each one.
Correct.
We only need that
I
once.
believe I heard volunteer and I heard business community.
Well, I made that as we were talking about who's interested and who has a vested interest in
I also,
maintaining.
and I heard alumni as another bullet there for people to be able to circle.
So I will wait for any other details forthcoming, and then I'll get started tomorrow on these changes and send back to the team tomorrow.
There was one other question
Okay.
I want to make certain I heard.